So I'm recording now.
I saw the countdown and totally tried to stop.
But so why I wanted to record it is because did you ever see that Who's on First, that skit? Have you ever seen that?
No.
Oh my goodness.
Who's on first?
Yeah, it's like an old time skit, like who's on first, I don't know, who's on second. And they basically just kind of go round and round in circles of like everybody's confused, they don't know what's going on type thing. Look it up. It's like a classic. Like, how can you not know that?
I'm going to be as nice as I can.
This is way before my time, too. This is way before my time.
Even more so, I wouldn't know.
Yes. Okay, let me look it up real quick. So,
have you ever seen Whose Line Is It Anyways?
Oh, that's one of the best shows.
Okay.
I'm so sad that it's not on.
I know that one. Same concept?
No, that's more like a ad lib. They're kind of like making stuff up as they go. Yeah. So it was by Abbott and Costello, and this was like, I mean, it's in black and white. It's super. This is like my parents' time, or grandparents maybe even.
Yeah. Okay. No.
Okay. Well, let's get going here. So today we are talking a little bit about, and this is as per the office manager / boss, the importance of gut consistency. Because that's probably one of the bigger issues, I think, with people being consistent with that, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Now, why do you think that is, though? Like, what have you seen that is your screen going all wonky?
My screen is going crazy.
Yeah. Well, I can still hear you, so let's just keep going, and then hopefully the recording will be fine. So do you see, like, how often do you see the gut consistency being an issue? Would you say honestly, most patients, 50%?
Yeah, I'm going to go with more than 50%. I'd probably say maybe a good 65 to 70 even. And I think it is because it is so much that it entails the individual to do on their own.
Yeah. And it's like,
we can't access my video. Can you see me?
No, I can't see you.
No, it stopped. Dang it.
That's right. It'll probably it'll buffer it, so it'll just kind of keep going. But as long as I can hear you, okay. I'll do some, I don't know, editing or whatever. Yeah. So out of kind of all the things that we do, it's kind of the most intense.
Yeah.
Right. You're still kind of like fairly new. We're usually kind of getting into it on like the third, fourth visit type stuff. Now, I always tell patients, and this is actually one of the little stickers on our vitamin box that we give out, but consistency and persistency, right? People kind of use them interchangeably. They're not. And with any functional medicine stuff or just health in general, you have to have both of those things. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of want to give the definitions here real quick. So consistency refers to the quality of being regular and unchanging in one's actions, behaviors, and performance over time. It involves maintaining a steady standard or pattern, often with minimal deviations. Right? Persistency, on the other hand, is about continuing to pursue a goal or task despite obstacles, challenges, or setbacks. And you're going to have all that stuff. So you have to be consistent. You got to keep doing what you're doing, and you have to be persistent. And I think that's often where some of the problem with doing the gut stuff occurs, because of the oftentimes when people, especially with gut issues, people start feeling better than when they actually are better.
Yeah.
So let's kind of do a little recap here real quick, Jessica. So 5 R's. What are the 5 R's?
You know when you see them, but you can't tell them.
So remove, replace, reinoculate, repair, rebalance.
Okay.
So basically it's this. Get rid of the bad stuff.
Yep.
Right? Whatever antimicrobials, bacteria, parasites, stuff that's in there. This also includes food allergies and food sensitivities. Replacing, this is you're putting the good stuff back in, right? Digestive enzymes, bile acids, different fibers, but it also includes nutrients. And this is why we do the full initial panel, see what nutrients you're missing. So after the replace, then you have reinoculate, pretty self-explanatory, right? Good bacteria. Repair, that's where a lot of people start doing the like glutamine, aloe, slippery elm, marshmallow root, right? Leaky gut stuff. And that's often where people start too, when they kind of are doing it on their own. And then rebalance is basically kind of keeping it there. So I don't know if you have watched my video on this. It was probably about 7 or 8 years ago, actually, that I did it. I did a whole like gut webinar on it. So anybody out there is interested, just go to YouTube and type in Dr. Craig Mortensen GI webinar, and it'll come up. So you can see me 8 years ago. I look so young.
You look the same.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So when working on the gut stuff, let's say somebody comes in for gut issues, do you see typical times when people notice a big improvement in how they're feeling?
I do feel most often they will get that initial, after starting, like, let's just say a round of antimicrobials, they will start to feel regular. Obviously, bowel movements being regular are huge with that. We may not get many changes per se in a lot of the other symptoms, which I don't tend to see.
Like hormones, that type of stuff?
Yeah, anything that they would come for that could possibly be changed by improving the gut. I really don't see that too often, but I do see more regularity. Maybe some of their gut symptoms will change, like bloating or less acid reflux, things like that during the initial stage, but then they might even drop off from that. And I do feel like most change literally will come after giving back the good and really just reinoculating it.
Yeah, it kind of feel like a lot of the same, but with kind of the caveat, if somebody's primary issue or like the stool test results show that it's like mainly a bacterial imbalance or like SIBO or whatever, a lot of times people will like feel like so much better after kind of doing the initial like removal phase. And I think that's for me anyway, that's probably the biggest issue, is because for most people, out of sight, out of mind. Their symptoms feel better.
Yep.
Right. The bloating goes away, they lose weight, whatever happens. And because they don't see it or feel it, then they stop doing what they're doing.
Yeah. Or stop being as consistent too.
Yeah. Because honestly, it's not hard to get burnt out on things. Right?
Yeah.
People get pill fatigue. I fall into it as well. So you do see that people kind of go in like a stair step though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's kind of talk about real quick stopping too early with things. So do you have a certain way that you kind of explain why people shouldn't stop too early?
Yeah, I do. I really have been making it a point to let them know the importance of commitment and making sure that they do understand what the gut process entails. Because when we do get people dropping off too early, like you had mentioned in the very beginning, the 5 R's are a package deal. You don't just get 2 or 3. It has to be all 5. And I think that's what not a lot of people really understand. The drop off tends to be, again, because they get pill fatigued or they do start to feel better and they're like, well, I didn't have to do the rest. But that's completely false, because if we remove, we absolutely have to reinoculate and repair at the end. And if you see from the total stool analysis that you don't have just one of those categories off and we have multiple, then it is going to take all 5 R's.
Right.
So I think that's huge with our patients.
Yeah, I always kind of give and so I'm sure you've experienced this by now, but so when those people do drop off, like let's say they start it, they feel better, they do it for a while, then they stop, right? And then you don't see them for a little while. What usually happens?
They come back.
Yeah, right. Like 6 months to maybe a year, sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little shorter, but that's kind of the time period. Right. And then they're often right back to where they started, or sometimes even worse.
I tend to see worse.
So have I given you or have you heard my lawn analogy on this?
Lawn?
Yeah, lawn.
I've heard many, but not lawn.
So maybe this is a new one. I don't know. So this is a great analogy on why you don't want to just kind of stop in the middle. So let's say you have your lawn and your lawn is just full of a bunch of weeds, right? To get a good, nice, healthy grass, you can't just go take a bunch of, grass seeds, go spread it and expect it to grow. It's going to get choked out by all those weeds. So what you need to do, right? You turn off the water, you get out there, pick the weeds, scrape it, basically get it down to bare dirt, right? And then you come back and now you plant the good seeds, you water, you fertilize it and all that stuff. So oftentimes what happens especially when people cut out too early with the whole removal phase, right? Because oftentimes that's when those symptoms go away. Is it's the equivalent of just getting it down to bare dirt, and then you're done. You're just leaving it, right? Which might be okay for a while, but eventually, whatever happened, the wind or a car happens to bring by, and whatever seeds, right? That's what grows, right? So maybe the initial bacteria or H. pylori or C. diff or whatever was there initially was gone, but now you just get something else.
Yeah.
So
I like that one.
Yeah.
That's a keeper.
That's definitely a keeper. So how long does it typically take for like gut stuff to heal, do you think? Like kind of what would be your, let's say, range?
Bare minimum, I think 6 to 7 months on the lower end. And I've had, a couple patients go a whole year and really trying to get their gut fully recovered. So it's a bit of a range, I know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say even maybe up to 2 years sometimes if it's, really bad, autoimmune and all these different things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you kind of have any, I have a little list that I made, but are there any particular things that you would say, like when somebody asks you, well, how long does it take? What would you say to that person on how long it takes?
I do give them that range, but I also, kind of just say everybody is different in the sense of, how persistent, how consistent can you be? That really takes a lot of that into consideration, and not just with the process that we have for them or like a protocol per se, but it's more like, how can you make your dietary changes? How can you make these lifestyle changes that will also impact your gut protocol? So I think it takes a well-rounded conversation. And again, that's why I go back to like, where's your commitment at this time and how much can you give to this commitment? So I think everybody's process is going to be different. And I just get a sense of where they're at this time. And is it going to be worth it for them?
Right. Yeah. Because we're trying to find because some people are good with, if they're feeling really crappy and then they go from, feeling 50% better from where they were, that's like a whole new world for them. And, and sometimes for that person, like maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all they want to feel, right? They don't want to be 100%. That's not me, but, we work with everybody. So some of the things I kind of wrote down here on, when somebody asks like, well, how long does it take? My first answer is always, well, that depends.
Yeah.
So how bad is it? How long have you had it? How healthy is the rest of your body? What issues are you working on? Are there toxins, autoimmune, cancer, kind of et cetera stuff? And then also kind of goes back to, are you persistent and are you consistent? Yeah. The last thing on here that I have down, and this will just kind of give people a little bit of an idea of kind of like the time it can take to heal leaky gut. Let's say if you had that. So your initial gut microbiome from the time that you're born to you kind of have your first microbiome setup takes about 3 years actually. And that's considering if you have no antibiotic, toxin exposure, glyphosate, Roundup stuff that just kind of jacks things up.
Good luck with that.
Right? Yeah, unfortunately. And then kind of another little thing here. And there's a number of studies out on this, but a single round of antibiotics, and it does kind of depend on the type of antibiotics, but a single round, so anywhere from 5 to 10 days, it can take anywhere from a couple months up to 4 years for your gut bacteria to and there's actually even some studies that say that certain bacteria and microcolony type stuff will actually never fully recover, which is kind of a scary thought.
Yeah.
So be persistent, be consistent. For our patients that are doing it, know that it is not forever. It will end. And the more persistent and consistent that you are, the quicker that it will end.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're not, then you're like, you stopping and starting, or you're kind of going back all over. And then something I kind of want to go back to on the gut bacteria stuff here and the antibiotics is this brings up the question that a lot of my patients have. I'm not sure about yours yet, but fecal transplants.
Oh, yes. I've had quite the conversations.
Yeah. So it's as of now, it's only FDA approved for C. diff. There's a lot of off-label stuff that people are doing.
Right.
I've even had people kind of do like the backyard version of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've not had any of my patients experience, but I definitely had the questions and, maybe that black market conversations on there.
Yeah, well, so there's actually a couple places that are doing off-label stuff. It's like 10 grand to get it done, so it's not
No
cheap.
way.
Yeah, and I think it's Hollywood is one of the places. 99% of the time, we're going to avoid that because it's a lot of money, and it's not a for sure thing. Right? It may help, but this is maybe kind of a future conversation. But yeah, it's the backyard one. Like, man, I got to credit those people because number one, you got to find somebody that's got you got to find somebody that's got good poop.
Yeah.
And then so basically, what you're doing, are you familiar with what they do?
100%. And I will tell you a funny story as to why I know this.
Yeah, go for it.
In midwifery school, I went to my very first conference, and it was a pharmacology, and they were doing a study on C. diff. So the study showed they did a fecal transplant, and it was so successful. So that's why it was brought up.
Yeah.
Side note, there was a study that was also found within that study. The original person who gave the stool sample was metabolically thin.
Oh, yes.
The person receiving it
was
overweight.
Yeah.
So that did transfer also over to the overweight person, and he became thin. Yeah. I had another midwife jump over the table, almost grab me and say, "I want your poop."
She tackles you.
Literally. And that is how I found out about fecal transplant. So it's definitely a conversation that I've looked into a lot when it comes to just gut microbiome and what it does transfer over. And the studies are amazing on it.
Yeah, it's really quite impressive.
And they use it a lot for dogs.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
I could see that.
A lot of the time, the fecal transplant are really successful for dogs.
Yeah. It's not an end-all be-all by any means, but
right.
Yeah, so because basically what you're doing, you're taking somebody's sample, right? You basically blend it up in a blender.
Blend it in a blender.
And then you're doing an enema with their...
Or capsules, your choice.
You can do capsules, yeah. I would not do that route. I would definitely do the enema route. Yeah. And so kind of one of the new supplements, so there's a lot of that research on the gut bacteria affecting your weight. One of our new supplements, new probiotic, I think we're calling it ProbioQuench, this specific bacteria that actually helps with weight loss and appetite control and all that stuff.
Have you had a couple patients use it yet?
Quite a few patients, yeah.
Me too.
They're loving it.
Yeah, me too. Mine too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anything else to add to this here, Nurse Jessica?
I really think just giving it that extra thought before we begin. And I think that comes from within and just realizing what it takes here in functional medicine. This is no quick fix, and it takes your commitment and just being prepared to give it all you got.
Yeah. And at the same time, like, nobody's perfect, right? People are going to have ups and downs. And I usually tell people, like, 80-20 rule, right? If you can follow 80% of what we recommend, even if you're not perfect, you're going to do really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. I'm Dr. Craig Mortensen. This is Nurse Jessica. And man, it's been so long since we've done like any recording.
I know.
What did we end up calling our... To the point functional medicine.
Somebody asked me and I was like, I have to get back to you on that one.
Yes. Yes. All right. That is it. We will see you next time.
All right. Bye, guys.